Hey there, my friends. This is Bill Macdonald, the writing doctor. Welcome to part two of four of our May the Fours Be With You ELAR folder. We're going to call it the emergency room folder. And if you watched part one yesterday, you got to watch us talk about the first E of ER, which is the conventions, better known as cups with two P's and two S's. The second E that we're going to talk about today is the essay called Expository. Part three will be called Reading for Comprehension and Revising for Content. And a reminder that whenever you're doing development and organization of a passage, you're working on the revising of the content and you're working on the conventions of a passage. You're working on the editing, which is the cups, the grammar. So without further ado, what you'll do is you'll flip the folder over to the opposite side so that way the two E's, editing and essay, the composition, the expository, are going to be on opposite sides on the outside. So if you think of this saying, 1, 2, 3, 4 gets a good score, and because two people grade the paper, we can also add 5, 6, 7, 8 turns good to great. So when two people grade the essay, they can give it anywhere from a 0 all the way to a 4. So instead of using a specific program or a curriculum, I'm not going to use a gimmick. I'm not going to use a trick. I'm going to use the actual scoring guide itself. The student scoring guide is the prompt page, and it tells them in the very first bullet, clearly state for fourth grade your central idea. It's called a central idea statement. In seventh grade, it says clearly state your controlling idea. Controlling idea statement. In ninth grade, it's clearly state your thesis, a thesis statement. And in 10th grade, it's the position. Clearly state your position. Now, I want you to notice that I have a red set of words and letters here, yellow, and then we have blue and green and red here at the end. So the red light is going to be like the topic. Section 1 in a prompt page is the reading section. Section 2 is the think section. And section 3 is the write section. So I would suggest that you have your students write the word wow in section 3, and they can think of wow as this, that they're going to underline the word right and think of the O as a circle and circle the key words. For fourth grade, it's always been one of the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, and why. Ever since STAAR has started. Write about one thing you'd like to do in the future. That's a what. Write about your favorite place, a where. Write about one person you admire, a who. Write about one reason you love fourth grade. That's a why. So if you check each prompt, you're going to find out every single one of them is one of the 5 W's. A who, a what, a when, a where, and a why. One year, they asked a negative prompt, write about what's difficult, one thing that's difficult for you. And because that was negative and all the other ones were positive, a lot of kids, I think about 14,000 kids got zeros. That was about 2 years ago. Last year, or the year before, they asked the students, write about an invention. And the students, because they hadn't taken science, because some schools don't teach science until fifth grade, they didn't know what an invention was, or they didn't know how to look it up in a dictionary because they didn't know how to navigate it, like we talked about in our last video. In seventh and ninth grade, it's sort of like a cause and effect. Right about the importance of something. So, right about the importance of love, let's say. So, if you have love cause, then you'll have this effect. If there is no love cause, then there'll be this effect. And it just depends on how you decide what you think. And in 10th grade, it's usually a compare or a contrast, not and a contrast, because you don't want to write two positions, you want one. So let's say, write about whether or not love heals all wounds. Well, either love heals wounds or love doesn't. So we would compare how love heals wounds, or we'll compare how love doesn't heal wounds. We'll pick one position and we'll stick to it. Okay? So the first thing that your kids can write is whatever their wow is, an attention getter, something that makes the reader go wow. One thing you could use is words of wisdom, or you could say, what other words could I use to start with besides the prompt words? Because if you're always restating the prompt, remember the saying, the reader is the eater of my words. So if every single student is asked to restate the prompt or turn it into a question, that's not going to be creative. So we need to think, what other way could I start besides asking a question? There's a million ways, and as long as your topic, your red light, ties in with your idea, whatever you think of your central idea statement in fourth grade, controlling idea statement seventh, thesis statement in ninth, and position in 10th, then you make it to Wonderland, because that's what the first bullet says. The second bullet, how to get a 2, says organize your essay. So for expository and persuasive, that basically means why did you choose your idea, whatever your thesis is. So if you think of this hand like a regular hand, this is the palm. And so in the center would be my central idea that controls everything. We could say, this is my thesis. So whatever I write about, everything that in the introduction, the body, and the conclusion has to tie together with our central controlling idea, thesis, or position. So when the second bullet says organize, what the readers are going to be looking for is, in order to get to 2 land, they want to know why. So if I turn it this way, you can say the why is like your topic sentence. It's your main idea. If you're going to give 2 whys, then you have to do the same thing with these 4 fingers to get a 4 with both reasons why. We can have a blue Y for reason 1 and a green Y for reason 2, if you want to think of it like that. Once you tell the reader why you think something is true, then you might want to decide on an example. What example could I use? And I have a little acronym here. Pirates have cool hair. Pirates have cool hooks. Pirates have cool hats. But what it really means, because pirates have only one eye, because it's one idea about the topic, one thesis about the topic, one position about the topic. It stands for the example that I can use to explain my reason. My topic sentence is a personal example, something that happened to me or somebody I know. A hypothetical one, it didn't happen, but it could. A current event example, something that's happening in the news or in a book that I've read recently, in a newspaper article. Maybe it's in a fiction book or a nonfiction book, or it's historical, something that happened to someone or something before I was born. So once you have an example, think of this example one or two, just one or two examples that will support this reason. And so some people will say, once you have an example, can you give an anecdote? Yes, you can. As long as your anecdote, your little mini story, is explaining your reason and your example, that's perfectly fine. For example, if they told you, write about your favorite place, and you say Disney World is your place, your where, why? You could say because of the characters. What example could you give? Well, a character, two characters that meet you at the entrance are Minnie and Mickey Mouse. And then you could explain a little mini story about a time that you went with your family and got to meet Mickey or Minnie, or you could explain hypothetically what does happen, what could happen every time that you come in. They're right there to meet you at the gate. You can give another example. But what I want you to be careful about is with expository, it starts with the letters EXP. EXP for explain and EXP for explode. So I want you to be thinking, in order to get 3s and 4s, we have to do a good job of not just giving lots of reasons, lots of examples. It's called expository, not exampletory, or it's not expository, where we're spending half of our time explaining and the other half of the time just telling a story that has nothing to do with the reasons or the examples. Okay, so a 2-3 paper is examples that have somewhat to a great amount of explaining for the reason. Okay, and you can explain using what I call the 6+1 W's. Who, what, when, where, why, which, and how. I can ask any question about whatever reason and example that you give me that can support this explanation and make it stronger. That's the third bullet. It says, develop your ideas in detail. Well, if you do that, the more you develop and explain each reason, what we used to call elaborating, the better chance you have of getting a 3. Why do you not get a 4? Well, because the fourth bullet says to choose your words carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4 gets a good score. 5, 6, 7, 8 turns good to great. So think of the word words and separate the W into 2 V's. What they're wanting you to do is to do another E, is explode the essay by engaging the reader. See that little V there? V, with higher vocabulary and voice. That would be an example of choosing your words carefully. And the cool thing about this, if you point these 2 fingers to your head, inside your head are your thoughts and your opinions. If you point 2 V's inside your heart, you have your feelings and your emotions. And so it does say that You seem to be sharing from your own point of view and perspective in the scoring guide. So when you're engaging the reader, you're showing who you are on the inside, and that's keeping a connection. So that's what I call exploding the essay. I would recommend that you get those little toy planes from Dollar Tree to reward the kids who explain, and those little poppers that you can get at Walmart and Dollar Tree, where they get to pop a popper if they explode. Now, just as a side note, you may not know this, but only 1 out of every 100 kids in fourth grade gets 2 4s from the readers. That's how hard it is to make sure that you have a central idea statement, controlling idea, thesis, or position that has a good reason or two, with a good example or two that work together, tie together, that's explained. Because if you're going to have 5 reasons, you got to explain all 5 of them. If you're going to have 3 reasons, you should explain all 3. So I think it's best to have 1 or 2 reasons that you explain instead of 3 or 4 reasons, because you have to explain all your reasons in order to get a 3 or a 4. Okay? The last bullet says be sure to check your paper for capitalization, punctuation, usage, grammar, and sentences. So I'm going to call that the E. Think of sentences as in plural. So I want an ending, that's 2 syllables, or a conclusion, that's 3 syllables. So 2 or 3 sentences to end the paper. And then before you turn it in, that last bullet says your paper can either go up to a 4 or up to a 3 or up to a 2, or it can go down from a 4 to a 3, or from a 3 to a 2, or a 2 to a 1, because you don't have an ending. Before Victoria Young retired from the writing department of TEA, she said to me in an email, students must write complete essays to qualify for a 4. So if my palm and my thumb is my introduction, my 3 fingers here in the middle are the body, and my pinky is the conclusion, well, I love you if you have a central idea, an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, but this stands for loser, and no one's a loser, but you do lose 2 points by not having an ending. So no matter how well you explain or explode your essay, if you forget to have your ending, then your grade's going to go down. If you forget to take your paper to the ER, the emergency room of editing and revising, and fix the grammar, the conventions, and the content, to revise the content by adding, removing, replacing, or moving things, then our grade is going to go down. So students, I hope that makes sense and that you can use this simple hand to remember the steps, because regardless of what program you use, the thing you're going to see on test day is just that prompt page, and that's what the prompt says. Clearly state your central controlling idea, thesis, or position. Organize your essay by giving reasons or examples for both expository and persuasive. Explain your reasons, and my grade or more will get a good score. My age or more will get a good score. So the older you are in ability, the more you should be expected to be able to explain. There's no magic number of sentences that are needed, but you do want to try and explain with as many sentences as possible for each reason and example that you give. Okay. That third bullet, remember, says develop your ideas in detail. Fourth bullet does say choose your words carefully by exploding with high vocabulary and voice, which will engage the reader, keep him or her connected, and by making sure that you have sentences at the end called an ending or a conclusion, taking your paper to the ER. So that's what part 2 of the 4 parts looks like. In our next video, we'll work on the R of ER, the reading, and we'll be connecting the reading with the revising, and we'll be using the inside of the folder for reading and revising. Please share this video with your writing and reading teacher friends. I would love you to email me at writing_doctor@yahoo.com. If you have any questions, somebody asked me to write that down, so I'll go ahead and do that right here. Writing, the word was spelled out, _doctor, and then we have the @ yahoo.com. So if you have any questions about the video, my materials, any other videos that you might need help on, feel free to email me. Or if you're watching this through Facebook, what I did first was I uploaded it to my YouTube page. So if your school doesn't allow you to watch Facebook, then you can go directly to the YouTube page. The link is right there at the bottom. So you can message me with any questions that you might have. Please share or tag all of your reading and writing teacher friends. Thank you guys, and God bless.